Billy Abbott had always believed in grand gestures. They were easier than accountability. Candles flickered across the living room, soft music filled the air, and the lighting was carefully adjusted to the exact shade of hopeful regret. He stood near the fireplace, rehearsing his lines in his head as if this were a pitch meeting instead of the possible resurrection of his love life. When Sally Spectra walked in, she stopped just inside the door. "This was supposed to be about saying goodbye," she said quietly. Billy smiled in that reckless way that once made her feel like anything was possible. Maybe it doesn't have to be. Sally crossed her arms. She had prepared herself for closure, not seduction. You can't just redecorate the ending and pretend it's a new beginning. Billy stepped closer. "Chancellor was a disaster, I know that, but that doesn't mean we are." Sally felt that familiar ache rise in her chest, the part of her that still wanted to believe him, the part of her that had once written "I love you" on his hand in nice, laughing as the ink smudged against his skin. "You chose the company," she said. "You chose proving yourself over us." Billy's jaw tightened. Maybe I was trying to prove myself because no one ever believed in me. That landed harder than he expected. Sally blinked. "So this is my fault now?" "No," Billy said quickly. "I'm saying maybe I never had anyone who believed I could actually succeed." Sally turned away, the mention of fathers and disappointment cutting deeper than she liked to admit. Her own father had been full of big ideas and bigger failures, promises that evaporated like smoke. She had spent her life trying not to repeat that pattern. "You put Chancellor first," she said. Billy shook his head. "I saw it as building something for us. I run Chancellor, you run Spectre Charles Media, power couple, blissful, untouchable." Sally almost laughed at that. Blissful, Genoa City didn't do blissful. You can't just divide the empire like a pie chart and assume love fits into the margins. Billy stepped forward, softer now. "You once told me you loved me by writing it on my hand. You didn't even say it, you just wrote it, like you were afraid it would disappear if you spoke it." Before she could stop him, he took her hand and wrote the same words across her palm. "I love you." Sally's breath hitched. He leaned in and kissed her. For a moment, the world narrowed to warmth and memory. For a moment, Chancellor didn't exist, neither did pride, neither did fear. But when they pulled apart, uncertainty lingered in the silence between them. At the Newman Ranch, Victoria stood near the window overlooking the property she had grown up on. The land felt permanent, solid, unlike everything else. Nikki sat across from her, listening carefully. "You delayed Milan," Nikki observed. Victoria nodded. "I couldn't leave, not now." "This is about Nick." Victoria's expression shifted. "Sometimes when I look into his eyes, I don't see him, not fully, it's like he's somewhere else." Nikki's fingers tightened around her glass. "He's been through a lot." "He's going through pain medication too fast," Victoria said, "and he's distant, detached, it's subtle, but it's there." Nikki's composure cracked for a second. "Your father would handle this." Victoria stiffened at the mention of Victor, the man who built empires and destroyed peace with equal skill. "We can handle this," Victoria insisted. "We're not losing everything, not Newman, not Nick." Nikki sighed. "Rebuilding would be brutal." Victoria turned, her eyes blazing with the familiar Newman fire. "Then we rebuild, we don't give up." At Crimson Lights, Holden leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair as Audra Charles studied him carefully. "So Claire went digging in Lowe's Angels," Audra said, "and found nothing about the art dealer." "She found nothing," Holden confirmed, "but she found enough to know I'm keeping something from her." "And you are," Audra pointed out calmly. Holden smirked faintly. "Everyone keeps something." "Not everyone gets caught." He studied her. "You don't seem upset." "I think it's for the best," Audra replied. "Claire moving on from you simplifies things." "Things?" Holden asked. "My career," she said without hesitation. "Spectre Charles Media is my focus. I don't need Claire circling me." Holden's gaze sharpened. "You think she's coming after you?" "I think Claire doesn't like losing," Audra said, "and I don't like being someone's unfinished business." At Society, Claire sat at the bar beside Kyle Abbott. The lighting was low, the tension was. "So LA was a bust," Kyle said. "Completely," Claire admitted. "No new information about the art dealer." Kyle gave her a pointed look. Audra backed off. "You didn't." Claire bristled. "I just wanted answers." "You wanted validation," Kyle countered. "How many Audra-free days will it take before you accept she's not the problem?" Claire stared into her drink. "Not anytime soon." Kyle exhaled. "You're still letting her live in your head." Claire forced a small smile. "I can play it cool unless she comes at me again." "And Holden?" Kyle asked. Claire's expression hardened. "You were right, he's trouble." Kyle nodded once. I'm done with him, Claire said firmly. Across town, Audra looked out over the city lights, sensing the coming storm before anyone else did. Because in Genoa City, rivalries didn't fade. The kiss should have solved something. Instead, it complicated everything. Sally pulled back first. Her hand was still in Billy's, the ink slightly smudged now. I love you, 3 words that had once felt reckless and romantic, now they felt dangerous. You don't get to fix this with nostalgia, she said softly. Billy's jaw tightened. It's not nostalgia, it's us. Sally searched his face. He looked sincere. He always did when he wanted something badly enough. Chancellor wasn't just business, she said. It was obsession. You shut me out. I was fighting, Billy replied. For control, for my name, for once not being the screw-up Abbott. And I was fighting to matter, Sally shot back. The silence that followed wasn't dramatic, it was heavy. Billy stepped back, running a hand through his hair. Tell me you don't still feel this. Sally hated that she couldn't lie. I do, she admitted, but feelings aren't the problem, trust is. Billy nodded slowly, the truth landing like a blow. Then let me earn it back. You can't earn it with a speech and a kiss, Sally said. You earn it by choosing me when it's inconvenient. The words hung there because that was the test Billy had failed before. At the Newman Ranch, Victoria stood alone in her father's old office, staring at the portrait on the wall. Victor Newman, the architect of power, the king who never admitted weakness. Nick's face flashed in her mind. Earlier that afternoon, she had found an empty prescription bottle in the trash. Too soon, far too soon. When Nick walked in, he immediately sensed the shift in the air. You look like you're about to interrogate me, he said lightly. Victoria didn't smile. Are you okay? I'm fine. That wasn't what I asked. Nick's expression cooled. You're overreacting. Am I? She pressed. You're distant, you're distracted, you're burning through medication. It's prescribed, Nick snapped. For pain, Victoria replied. Physical pain, not whatever this is. Nick turned away, jaw clenched. You don't understand. Then make me understand. He looked at her then, and for a brief second the mask slipped. Exhaustion, fear, something darker. I'm tired, he admitted quietly. Tired of holding everything together, tired of being the stable one. Victoria softened. You don't have to be stable all the time. Nick let out a humorless laugh. Tell that to this family. Nikki appeared in the doorway, having heard enough to piece together the tension. We can handle this, she said gently, together. Nick nodded, but the flicker in his eyes hadn't disappeared, and Victoria noticed. At Spectra Charles Media, Audra reviewed projections on her tablet while pretending not to care about Claire. She cared. Claire walking into LA and digging around about the art dealer hadn't been random. It had been deliberate, strategic. When Holden entered, Audra didn't look up. You're still thinking about her, he said. I'm thinking about liability, Audra replied. Holden smirked. Claire isn't your competition. She doesn't have to be competent to be dangerous, Audra said calmly. Still defensive. Still observant, she corrected. Holden leaned against her desk. She's moving on from me. Good, Audra said flatly. You don't believe that. Audra finally met his eyes. Claire doesn't move on, she recalculates. At society later that evening, Claire found herself face to face with Audra. No audience, no Kyle buffer. Just tension. I didn't expect to see you, Claire said smoothly. Audra gave a measured smile. I live here. Still concerned I'm coming after you. Should I be? Claire took a step closer. You tell me. For a moment, neither woman blinked. You went to LA, Audra said, looking for dirt. I went looking for answers. Same thing in this town. Claire tilted her head. You seem nervous. Audra's smile didn't falter. I don't get nervous, I get strategic. And what's your strategy with Holden? Claire asked. Audra's expression cooled slightly. I don't build my future around men. Good, Claire replied, because he's not worth it. There it was, the shared truth neither wanted to admit. Holden was a catalyst, not the prize. Then we understand each other, Audra said. Do we? Claire countered, because I don't think this is over. Audra's gaze sharpened. It never is. Across town, Billy sat alone after Sally left. She hadn't said yes, she hadn't said no. She had said prove it. And for the first time, Billy realized that grand gestures wouldn't fix what insecurity had broken. Meanwhile, Sally stood outside, staring at her palm. The ink had faded slightly, but the impression remained. Inside the Newman home, Victoria and Nikki watched Nick carefully, too carefully. He laughed at something trivial, he deflected, he smiled when required. But when he thought no one was looking, he stared into nothing. And Victoria's earlier confession echoed in her mind. Sometimes when she looked in his eyes, she didn't see her brother. She saw someone slipping away,